This is the Italian Real Estate Podcast, here to help you with the ins and outs and basics of Italian real estate, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Italian Real Estate Podcast, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing great, thank you. And of course, I'm Rafael Di Furia. And in this episode, we are going to answer some of your questions that you guys have left on previous episodes. And so just to jump straight into this on the episode, living in Italy legally in your own property. If you have an Italian passport and plan to live in Italy for 6 months a year, are you able to buy a car in Italy, or do you have to be a resident?
That's an interesting question, and there is a practical answer and a legal answer. So the legal answer is that you have to be a resident in an Italian municipality by law. But also there's a practical aspect that would make it very difficult to purchase a vehicle without being a resident, because when you go and purchase the vehicle from the car dealer, you will be asked to show some proof of identity, and normally you will be asked to provide your passport or your ID, and the ID is much more common. And normally you get an ID only if you are a resident of Italy. There might be situations where you have an Italian ID without being a resident. Maybe you got it when you were a resident and now you're no longer a resident of Italy, or maybe you got it through an Italian consulate that is able to issue IDs, because not all the Italian consulates are able to issue IDs to Italian citizens who are residents in the jurisdiction. And by ID, I mean the identification card, of course, not the Italian passport, because every Italian consulate is able to release an Italian passport, but not every Italian consulate is able to give you an ID, an Italian identification card. So like I said, there might be situations where you have an ID, but you're not a resident. But let's say that normally people who have an ID got it from an Italian municipality, and more specifically, the Italian municipality where you reside. Additionally, you will have to provide your Italian tax code in order to be able to purchase a car. And again, while there might be situations where somebody has an Italian tax code without being a resident of Italy, it's much more common to have an Italian tax code if you are a resident of Italy. To get an Italian tax code from Italy, if you are a resident, it's quite easy. You need to visit one of the local revenue agencies locations, which in Italian are called Agenzia delle Entrate. You will have to go through a process to obtain your tax code. It's fairly easy. And if you're a resident, it will be released to you without any questions. But if you are a non-resident, in most cases, you have to state the reason why you need the tax code. And that also applies to people who reside abroad and need to get a tax code from the Italian embassy. For example, the Italian embassy will release very easily a tax code if you show that you have to purchase a property in Italy. But otherwise, if you state no reason, and of course the reason can't be I need to purchase a car because you are a resident abroad, and the purchase is only allowed for people who reside abroad. So if you state, who reside in Italy. So if you state that that you need to purchase a car and you live abroad and you are dealing with a consulate, you will not get a tax ID. And finally, when it comes to purchasing a car in Italy, you will have to state in the contract your residency address. The residency address means the address where you legally reside. And of course, you need to state in the contract information that is true from a legal standpoint. So you can only state there the address where you actually reside in Italy from a legal standpoint.
So in short, it sounds like what you're saying, Marco, is that whether you're a citizen or not, that you have to be a resident regardless in Italy, legally residing there, to be able to purchase a car in Italy.
Correct.
Very interesting. And also it was interesting that you did mention about the passport, because unlike some other countries, the Italian passport does have a section in there where it is able to reflect your current residence in there, and it will actually make an annotation in there. But if a person actually is wanting to reside in Italy, how do they go about that?
The registration process is fairly easy. Of course, if you are an Italian citizen, you can apply for the registration as a resident based on your citizenship. But if you are a non-Italian citizen, unless you are a European citizen, you will need a visa and a residency permit. So only Italian citizens and European citizens can register as residents in Italy just based on their citizenship. Everybody else who has a citizenship from a country outside of the EU, they need a visa to enter Italy, and they will need to obtain a residency permit in order to register as a resident. The registration basically is quite simple. You have to visit the town hall in the municipality where you intend to live and fill out a couple of application forms where basically you indicate the place where you're going to be residing and how many family members are going to be residing with you. If there are other people residing with you, you're going to have to put all of your personal information, of course. And normally the municipality, so the town hall specifically, the cleric will need proof that you have a property that you can use. That means that you're going to have to show a rental agreement, or you're going to have to show that you own a property in that town, or maybe that somebody else is hosting you, in which case normally a letter of hospitality will do.
Very, very interesting. Thank you for going into detail on that topic. And to keep on moving on to the next question, on the YouTube episode, Renting in Italy, Relationship Between the Landlord and the Tenant, from YouTube viewer at Violet White 1450, asked a question about Canadians no longer being allowed to purchase property in Italy due to a reciprocal law that came into effect when Canada passed a new law forbidding foreigners to buy property in Canada. Is this true, and does it apply to Canadians with Italian citizenship registered in the IRE? And what is the minimum amount of time that you must rent in Italy to be able to establish residency?
So let's try to answer the questions in the order in which they were asked. So the first question is regarding the possibility for Canadians to purchase property in Italy. And things actually changed starting from January 1st of 2023. The possibility to purchase a property in Italy is based, for foreigners, is based on the reciprocity principle, meaning that only if Italians are allowed to purchase a property in a foreign country, then the citizens of that country are allowed to purchase property in Italy. And things changed in January 1st of 2023 in Canada, where basically, specifically talking about Italy, Italians were basically no longer allowed to purchase several types of properties in Canada. And of course, the Canadian law was came into effect and was made for several reasons, primarily to give preference to Canadians who want to purchase a house in their home country over foreigners. And as a consequence to that law, Canadians, just simply because of the reciprocity principle, became unable, as a consequence, to purchase the same properties in Italy. So the properties that Italians were no longer allowed to purchase in Canada. And which properties are we referring to? So the Canadian law refers to certain types of property, which in Italy, basically, based on the reciprocity principle, means that Canadians cannot buy properties in a residential area in Italy. So Canadians are still able to purchase many other properties, and properties that are not properly located, technically located in a residential area. So there is space, a lot of space still for Canadians to buy some kinds of properties in Italy, but not those properties who are located, technically speaking, in a residential area. There are several exceptions, though. For example, it is possible for Canadians to buy commercial properties in Italy. It is possible for Canadians to buy properties that are not located in a residential area in Italy. And it's possible for Canadians who have initiated the process to purchase in Italy before January 1st to continue with that process. So if they signed a preliminary agreement, if they signed a proposal, if they paid a deposit, it's possible to continue with that process. Also, there are other exceptions. For example, those Canadians who hold dual citizenship with Italy can still purchase in Italy. Now, we're still waiting for the Italian government to give us more clarifications, legal clarifications as to which properties exactly can be purchased by a Canadian who wants to purchase in Italy. And those guidelines will probably be released in the near future by the Ministry of Interior. But as of today, they haven't been released yet. Also, let's not forget that the ban for foreigners to buy in Canada is only valid for 2 years as of right now. So we can expect, based on the reciprocity principle, that Canadians will be unable to purchase a property in Italy only for the next 2 years, and of course starting from January 1st of 2023.
Very interesting how that all works, and how there are these rules that go back and forth between the countries depending on what one may rule in favor or against the other. But another topic to get into on the episode, 7 advantages of buying property in Italy, from YouTube user at dr-ed5uw. Do you help people to buy in all of Italy? Do you refer people who want to buy? I'm not fluent, so I will need a translator. Thanks. I know this is a question that comes up quite often. So basically, at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you operate in all areas of Italy, and do you help people to be able to purchase their property throughout the process? Or are these services that you send out to Italian real estate agents?
Very good question. Yes, we do operate in the whole country, including the islands. So Sicily or Sardinia, and we help with the whole process, so from beginning to end, and we help with any type of property. So whether it's a residential property, a luxury villa, or a piece of land, we can help you from A to Z, from locating a property to, so we actually do research and provide options to our clients who don't really know which property to buy, and they want us to look for one that suits their needs, to all the way to the final contract of sale, which basically is the final contract that states that the person becomes the legitimate owner. We also go beyond that, because we can offer post-sale services to those clients who are interested in having us manage the property, or maybe paying annual taxes or whatever it may be. And absolutely no, we don't outsource any services. So we take care of everything in-house, meaning that we take care of the whole process by ourselves without relying on other professionals.
Well, that's something that I can say I very much respect, your ability to keep everything under one roof and be able to have your hand on all aspects of the process, because just when things get with too many people in too many different places, things can get very complicated very quickly, especially in the topic of purchasing property. So that's wonderful that you're able to have access and be able to help in all aspects, in all areas, in all parts of the country. But moving on to the next question from the episode, Italian property taxes overview, from YouTube user at Bob Sullivan, aka Buffy. To kind of paraphrase here, if you buy a home in Italy, even if you're an American currently living in the US, but if it's your first home bought in Italy, then there's no annual tax for 1 year only, or for all first homes pay nothing. Bob was also mentioning that this would definitely not be a luxury property. So how would that all fit together?
So Italy does offer a tax discount to those who are buying their first home in Italy. However, the main requirements are, first of all, like Bob mentioned, the first requirement is that it's not a luxury property. So let's talk about normal houses who do not fall into the luxury property as a category. The second requirement is that the person who's purchasing needs to establish the residency in the municipality where the property is being purchased within 18 months from the purchase itself. So it's not only about buying your first house, but it's also about moving your residency into the property within 18 months from the purchase, unless you are an Italian citizen or a dual citizen residing abroad, in which case, if you're buying your first home in Italy, it's not necessary to move your residency to Italy. And the tax discount basically consists in a 7% discount on the purchase tax. So instead of paying the 9% on the value on paper of the property, you will be paying the 2%. So if you meet the requirements, and also there are no annual taxes for your first home in Italy.
Well, thank you so much, Marco, for explaining that and getting into that topic. And just for the last question of this episode, another comment left on the YouTube episode, the truth about €1 houses in Italy, how to buy, and an overview from YouTube user at Pepper2304. Just to paraphrase the question. So, do you get citizenship for buying one of these homes? Do you get citizenship if you purchase a €1 home in Italy?
So the answer is no. You do not get citizenship as a direct consequence of simply purchasing a €1 house. Citizenship can be acquired after a number of years of residency in Italy, but it's not, like I said, directly connected to the purchase of a €1 house. And it doesn't matter if you're buying a €1 home or a normal property in Italy, citizenship never comes as a direct consequence of the purchase, nor it guarantees residency automatically. And also regarding €1 houses, I will just round up the episode here by saying that the €1 program does require residency in some cases. So there are some towns that require that you take up residency in Italy in order to be able to be accepted into the program.
Yeah, I know there's some of those regions, for example, where they're offering, like Molise was at one point offering 30,000 to move there, and that was very much a necessity of being able to access, or not being able to access, but being able to be accepted into that program. So that's a really fantastic point there. So Marco, of course, thank you so much for making yourself available for this episode. And if anybody is needing help to purchase property in Italy, rent property in Italy, relocate to Italy, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, italianrealestatelawyers.com, or call us. Our number is on our website.
Well, absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're interested in more content like this about moving to Italy, purchasing property in Italy, renting property in Italy, or where to do that, be sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel as well as the audio-only podcast. But of course, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you're also automatically subscribed to the Italian Citizenship podcast, where we talk more about legally making Italy your home, not only through residency, but through marriage and also Italian citizenship by descent. And if you're interested in more content about life abroad, living abroad, or living abroad as a dual citizen expat, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel and audio podcast on youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can search for Not Your Average Globetrotter. But again, thank you, Mr. Marco Permunian from ItalianCitizenshipassistance.com, for making yourself available for this episode of the Italian Real Estate Podcast. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.